All we're hearing now on COVID-19 is cases, cases, cases. What's with the cases? It was flatten the curve for 2 weeks and get back to normal so that the hospitals could catch up. Meanwhile, there's thousands of people missing cancer treatments. It's just mind-boggling. So let's get back to the cases. So let's put cases of COVID next to cases of HIV. What? Why would I do cases of HIV next to cases of COVID? Let's talk about viral load. Viral load is when you don't have enough infection to make it pass on. So with all these cases, and people not knowing they have it, probably means they're not passing it along. Going back to HIV, in Canada, they had a law that said if you had unprotected sex with somebody and you didn't tell them that you had HIV, that was a statutory rape. Then they changed the law because of viral load and the drugs that could bring the viral load down. And then you could have sex with somebody, not tell anybody, and then you would be okay. It's not a statutory rape charge. And we have to kind of look at this with the COVID-19 because most of these cases don't have enough viral load to pass it along to somebody. So why is the media so hyped up about cases, and all the different doctors in their respective provinces, states, countries are still all perpetuating this lie about cases. Almost all of the deaths are from people that are quite elderly. These people would probably die if they fell and broke their hip. These people probably have 2 or 3 comorbidities. That means they're going to probably pass away with something anyways. We had the CDC come out with a number that 6% was actually the real number of people that probably died from COVID-19. So if you're looking at the states, that's 9,000 out of 180,000 people.
6% of the deaths that have occurred can be directly attributable to COVID. 94% cannot. Of the 160,000 people that have died, 9,210 actually died from COVID. There is no pandemic. And that's what you've been thinking. We have the responsibility, I think, as spiritual leaders to be patient until the truth emerges. We've all been suspicious of the fact that we've been meeting together now for weeks and weeks and weeks. We don't know anyone who's ill. Nobody in our congregation has ever been to the hospital with this. It's clear to us the fabrication of numbers because they're including people who had 2 or 3 comorbidities. We know all of that. We know there are reasons for this that have nothing to do with the virus. There's another virus loose in the world, and it's the virus of deception. And the one who's behind the virus of deception is the arch deceiver, Satan himself. And it's not a surprise to me that in the midst of all this deception, the great effort that is going on is to shut down churches that preach the gospel. So, this is not a political speech, by the way. But it does not surprise me that they want to shut down those who preach the gospel because the architects of this level of deception are not a part of the kingdom of heaven, they're a part of the kingdom of darkness.
So why the lockdowns? Why the perpetuating story of COVID-19 and all of the news cycles? Again, from the top down, from the governments down to the multimedia sources. It's just mind-boggling that people are actually paying attention to this. Walking down the street alone, I see people wearing masks riding their bicycle down a country road. Like, are you serious? Masks for a country road. Masks, people driving with masks in their car alone. These people are nuts. This is nuts. This whole thing has to end, or it's going to get very, very ugly. Look what's happening in Australia. It's maddening. We're losing our rights, losing our civil liberties. This has to stop. And the best way for this to stop is for people to get out there and spread the real news.
Put in a position where they won't have their rights trampled anymore. And us as law enforcement officers, we'll have our ability to enforce the law stripped from us in about 10 minutes. Okay? I think what is going to happen if this continues is we're going to see bloodshed in the streets. Okay? I don't want to see bloodshed in the streets on either side of this coin. I don't want to see fellow officers get injured or killed, and I certainly don't want to see citizens get injured or killed. And I promise you, most of you out there doing these tyrannical acts against our citizens, you're not ready for combat. You're not mentally or physically ready for combat.
Obviously, Google, Twitter, Facebook is not listening to the science, not listening to people that have Nobel Peace Prizes in their fields, and not letting them be heard from the multimedia to get out to the sources. So what's really going on? Is this really an agenda to collapse our society? If you look at how societies collapse, they use sanctions. So these sanctions are the COVID lockdowns, the shuttering of businesses. Businesses opened halfway. This is pure insanity that we are letting this happen. Stop the lockdowns, let people get back to work, back to school, and live our lives. We cannot take this anymore. The more we let them take our liberties and our rights, the more they're going to squash them, the more that they're going to put their agenda to work. We need to stop it now.